Hi, I'm Amy. Welcome to the introduction to a new region of Pokemon. This is an idea that I've been thinking about making for a very long time, combining two of my favorite things in the world into a single concept, Dungeons & Dragons and Pokemon. There's a lot of interesting mechanics between the two, some of them overlapping, and I do have ideas for how I want a D&D Pokemon game to work, but we'll get into that in a later video. We start where almost every Pokemon game begins, with the starter choice. And as almost every dex goes, this is no different, starting with the grass type. You'll see me go through a lot of different versions and concepts that I didn't like. Mostly I felt like I couldn't make the idea look how I saw it in my head, so they ended up getting scrapped. They'll make an appearance down the line because I really like the ideas, they just didn't feel like starters. The grass starter for this region is based on the Boule. The original ideas that I went through for all three starters didn't feel enough like D&D creatures, more so just general mythology. Which is fine, but I want the first Pokemon you meet to evoke D&D. And what's a more interesting D&D creature than a Boule? I want to give each of these Pokemon an interesting and strong personality, and I imagine that this starter is a bit more reserved, maybe scared, literally having to come out of its shell, so to speak. This is Trelunk, the bark Pokemon from Tree, Trunk, and Boule, a grass-type starter Pokemon. Trelunk are often seen by their helmets sticking out of the ground like a misplaced root. They'll ram into trees with enough force to make berries fall from their branches. Its shiny is loosely based on a birch tree with the white bark. For its ability, I gave it the base ability that every grass starter gets, Overgrow. For its hidden ability, I went with Battle Armor, since it seemed fitting given its cute little helmet. If you have any other ideas for abilities for any of these Pokemon, put them down in the comments. Also, I have no idea how best to lay out stats, but I'm imagining that Trelunk have good physical defense, but other than that, I can't say for sure. Maybe good speed? Let me know what stats you would give these designs. Now we get into my favorite design of the video. I know you shouldn't pick a favorite child, but this one has been my favorite from the start, when I was initially thinking about the concepts for these Pokemon. Plus, it's the one that's changed the least from the beginning. It's pretty obvious that this Pokemon is based on a Will-O-The-Wisp, but I went in a bit of a different direction than you may think. I really like the idea of having its hands be candles, even though that somewhat related it to Litwick. When I first showed this design to my roommate, she said that its hands looked like marshmallows, and the whole idea changed from there. I know I quite literally just said that I wanted these Pokemon to feel more like D&D creatures, but I couldn't help myself with this one. And don't worry, we'll bring back some of that D&D inspiration down the line. From the get-go, I wanted this to be a Fairy Fire type Pokemon, which somehow is still a type that hasn't been officially used. There are a lot of Fairy types. So what are a lot of Fairy type Pokemon known for? Well, yes, that, but other than that? Okay, no. Being food. Having a Fairy Fire type Pokemon that's based on both a Will-O-The-Wisp as well as a S'more weirdly just works. Plus, I gave it a campfire on its head that also looks like a crispy marshmallow. Ugh, I love this design so much, and I want plushies of them all. They're just little guys. Meet Smorch, the Sweet Wisp Pokemon, from S'more and Torch, a Fire Fairy type starter Pokemon. The Sweet Wisp Pokemon from S'more and Torch, a Fire Fairy type starter Pokemon. Smorch often travel in large, single-file lines. People think that these lines lead to something important, but it's usually just a campfire somebody forgot to extinguish. For its abilities, it, of course, gets Blaze since it's a Fire-type starter Pokemon. However, for its hidden ability, it felt very fitting to go with Well-Baked Body for its extra toasty goodness. Last, but certainly not least, is our Water type. This is another that I had an idea for, but it didn't exactly feel very D&D, so I changed it up. It still doesn't feel exactly like a D&D creature yet, but again, I promise it will. I really like the idea of a Kelpie, which was my first idea. Plus, I really liked the design that I had with the Aurora-like mane, and I think it would have worked, but it would have felt weird compared to the other two. And the final design here definitely fits better. I did take some inspiration from Ammonite and Amistar, and I can see them being close to each other on the Tree of Evolution. They are both based on Nautiluses, but different types of Nautiluses. To be fair, a bit of my snail-based bias is showing here as well, since I adore the pointed, more conical shells rather than the round, flat ones. One thing you may notice is that none of these Pokemon have the mainly red, orange, mainly blue, and mainly green color palette that most starters usually have. I understand why they make them that way so it's easier to understand their typing, especially for people who are new to the series. But there are other ways to do that, like with texturing context. Trelunk has a wooden bark texture and Smorch is, well, a campfire. Last, we have Cuddlid, the Cuttlefish Pokemon from Cuttlefish and Kid. It's a water-type Pokemon. If you're lucky, when swimming in the ocean, you may see a Cuddlid gently floating about. They use electrical impulses in their scales to become nearly invisible. Of course, its basic ability is Torrent. For its hidden ability, I gave it Protean. Yes, that is very similar to Greninja, but I definitely think Cuddlid will stand out against it. Well, that's my first video here. I can definitely see myself redesigning these guys at some point down the road when I know better what I'm doing, but for now, I love them so much. Thanks for watching, and if you're curious to see where this goes, like me, then feel free to hit the subscribe button. If you have any ideas for D&D monsters, creatures, or concepts that you think would be fun Pokemon, put them down in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Also, check me out on Twitch, where I'll likely be streaming once or twice a week, shiny hunting or doing artwork for these videos, so you get a sneak peek. In any case, if you like what you see and see what you like, feel free to do so down below. See you next time. Bye!